Phones are a lifeline. They connect us to family, to friends, to help when we're in danger. A simple ring can mean comfort, safety, or love. But sometimes that sound means something else. Because when the line goes quiet, when a voice you don't recognize starts to whisper, or when the call seems to come from nowhere at all, that lifeline suddenly becomes a doorway. A doorway to confession, to madness, or something not quite human. Across decades of recorded history, a handful of phone calls have stood out, not because of what was said, but because of how that made people feel. Fear, confusion. The creeping sense that someone or something was reaching out from the other side. From desperate killers begging for forgiveness to chilling cries for help that defy explanation. These are the moments that prove sometimes the scariest thing you can hear is your own phone ringing. Tonight, we count down 5 of the scariest phone calls ever recorded. The disturbing call of the weepy voice killer. In the early 1980s, police in Minneapolis began receiving a series of deeply unsettling phone calls. The man on the line was sobbing uncontrollably, confessing to violent acts on women. Between gasps and tears, his words spilled out.
God, I can't stop myself. I keep killing.
The voice was high-pitched, panicked, and trembling with guilt, or perhaps fear of him himself. Officers desperately tried to trace the calls, but by the time they arrived, another victim had often already been found. When he was finally caught, the man behind the voice was identified as Paul Michael Stefani, who became known to the world as the weepy-voiced killer. The original recordings of his broken, sobbing confessions still echo through true crime history, haunting reminders of a man torn between his monstrous impulses and his desperate cries for help. The 911 exorcism call. In 2006, a 911 dispatcher in the United States answered a call that would haunt them forever. On the other end was a frantic woman pleading for help, her voice quivering as she claimed her teenage daughter was possessed. Through the recording, you can hear the chaos unfolding in the background. The girl's guttural growls, violent shrieks, and eerie, inhuman tones that defy any rational explanation. Officers rushed to the scene, but even they struggled to describe what they found inside that home. Some say it was a case of severe mental distress. Others, something far darker. But to anyone who listened to that recording, the raw primal terror in those sounds is unforgettable. A moment where the line between the natural and the supernatural seemed to vanish entirely. The ghost calls of Eastern Airlines Flight 401. On December the 29th, 1972, Eastern Airlines Flight 401 crashed into the Florida Everglades, killing more than 100 passengers and crew. In the months that followed, employees began reporting something unexplainable. Phones within the Eastern's office and maintenance department began to ring, but when answered, staff claimed to hear the voices of pilots and crew who had perished in the crash. Some of these calls even included details only those lost crew members would have known. The phenomenon became so widespread that Eastern Airlines allegedly ordered employees not to discuss it publicly. Many dismissed it as grief or coincidence, but others swore they recognized the familiar, calm tones of their deceased colleagues. Whether these calls were the echoes of tragedy, or a trick of the mind, or something truly supernatural, the story of Flight 401 remains one of aviation's eeriest mysteries. The last call from inside the towers. September the 11th, 2001. In the midst of chaos, fear, and unimaginable destruction, thousands of people trapped inside the Twin Towers reached for their phones. Some called loved ones, others called 911. These were not ghostly calls, but they are among the most haunting recordings in existence. The calm voices of those saying goodbye, the disbelief in their tones, the bravery in their final words. They tell stories of courage in the face of horror. Many of these messages remain preserved today, left on answering machines and voicemails, standing as a heartbreaking reminder of that day's human cost. They may not belong to the paranormal, but they are proof that even in our final moments, we reach out, hoping someone will answer. The unknown caller. In the late 1990s, a family living in Colorado began receiving dozens of strange late-night phone calls. When they answered, there was nothing but static, heavy breathing, and every so often a whisper, someone saying their names. The calls became relentless. Night after night, the phone would ring. The family changed numbers, had lines replaced, even switched service providers. But the calls continued. Eventually, investigators managed to trace the origin of the calls, only to discover something chilling. They were coming from inside the family's own home. No suspect was ever found, and to this day, no one knows who or what was making those calls. A ringing phone is supposed to bring connection, a voice on the other side that makes you feel less alone. But sometimes, what waits for you isn't a friend or a loved one, but something else entirely. So next time your phone rings late at night, pause for a moment before you answer, because you never know who might be listening, or worse, who's calling from behind you.